Alright guys, we're back for another one. In the last episode, I finished welding up the wastegate dump pipe and things went a little pear-shaped. And from there, you saw me cut it up. So the welding process actually pulled the pipe around a little too much and the V-band flange wasn't aligning anymore. It did bolt up, but it was just putting too much tension on the pipe itself. On top of that, I ovaled the slip coupling, which meant getting the thing on and off the car became an absolute nightmare. So in true RestoHub fashion, I cut it up. And onto the turbo dump pipe itself. Not sure if I called it out in the last episode, but I actually made a notch out piece to clear the steering box, and I absolutely hate it. So in this episode, we're fixing all that up. All right, as I called out earlier, you can see this notch here in the turbo dump pipe, and I don't like it. So one of the viewers actually left a comment suggesting I should run oval pipe in sections. And Trevor, thanks for the comment. You planted a seed and it's growing to fruition now. Well, that took a lot longer to make than to pull it apart. All right, I've got one piece of pie and the round to oval transition piece just taped together and sitting on the dump pipe. And don't know if you can see, but there's a lot more room to the steering box compared to what I had before. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it looks just dummied up there. So what I might do is actually mark out exactly where it's going to go and tack it together and see how it looks. Out of gas. Awesome. All right, I've got the oval piece tacked on and I've had to transition using a pie cut as well. So this should give me enough clearance to the steering box now. Just gonna put it on the car and have a quick look. And if it looks pretty good, I'm gonna go ahead and add some more tacks. It is a little bit gappy compared to what I do like, but you know, these mandrel pieces, sometimes they just go out of round. It's pretty exaggerated in some areas, but you know, I should be able to fill up those gaps with a bit of filler. All right, I'm gonna get this on the car and we'll see how it looks. All right, I've got the turbo dump pipe back in the car and as you can see, there's a lot more clearance than before. So super happy with that. And now I need to sort of transition from this point here and swoop it under the ground with some pie cuts. So I need to make pies on both planes. So this one here and also that plane there, and swoop it underneath and aim towards the back of the car. So I think I'll probably have 2 or 3 pieces here and then it'll swing back into a round section with a V-band. So I'm aiming to have the V-band somewhere around here. So I'm going to need about 3 pieces of pie possibly, but we'll see how I go. All right, once that's all done, I'll then look to welding the whole piece together, including the merge, and then we'll get back to fixing that last piece on the wastegate dump pipe. I've just been cutting some pieces of pie and my bandsaw, I'm literally at the limit of how much I can cut. So I think I've got like 3 mil to spare with the height of this 4-inch oval tube. I was nearly in a bit of trouble and would have had to cut the pies manually with a grinder. That would have been super fun, but thankfully it just fits. As I've been cutting these pieces of pie, my bandsaw blade, it's been making a knock sound every time the joint comes through the cut. So yeah, she's giving me signs that it's almost time for a new blade. And unfortunately, I don't have one in stock. So I'm hoping this blade gives me a few more cuts that I need to finish this job off. So my estimate of 3 pieces of pie with the oval section, pretty close. So yeah, I've got this little segment here, which I'm going to clean up the insides, deburr it all and get it prepped for welding, tack it together, and then work on joining the dots. I don't know if you can see that, but it's going to be pretty gappy going from oval back to round. So I'm going to have to play around with this piece here a little bit, maybe squish it in a vise or give it a few taps with a rubber mallet. But I think I should be able to get it sorted. It's just going to have some gaps to deal with once I'm fully welding it, but it is what it is, right? Ideally, I'd have no gaps to weld up, but sometimes you just got to roll with it and get it going. Yep. I've got butterfingers today. It's hot. Some of you guys at home thinking, yeah, no. Alright, so you've seen me tack together the oval pie cuts, and now I need to tack it onto this oval to round. The problem I've got, it's a little bit gappy when they've manufactured this part. It's never accurate. I've given it a few love taps with the rubber mallet to see if I can get better alignment here, but yeah, I'm sort of fighting it a little bit and I'm not getting much result. So what I might do is I'm probably going to tack it together with as equal gap around both sides. So then once I'm welding it proper, I'll just use filler to take up the slack. One of two things is going to happen here. I'm either going to blow some decent holes or I'm going to tack it together. Go ahead and pause the video and in the comment section let me know what you think is going to happen. A, blowing holes, or B, she's all good. Well, it's an ugly tack weld, but it's there. Hopefully I don't melt these clamps. Let's go. The pie cuts are beautiful in terms of the gaps. It's just the transition piece from oval to round So, you know, all in all, it's going to work. Just doesn't look the prettiest. That's right, I'm going to see how this looks under the car now, and I'll bring you with me. All right, just as I thought, this thing fits perfectly. The transition to the back of the car is exactly where I wanted it to be. Time to get this thing tacked together. All right, I've got the turbo dump pipe fully tacked together all the way up to the V-band. That's just sitting there at the moment, but effectively that's what it's going to look like. And as you can see, I've got plenty of clearance where it matters. So I wouldn't have been able to have that clearance without going to the oval section. Super happy with how it looks. And as you can see, we're pointing at the back of the car, and the angle of this dump pipe is perfect. It's actually aligned now to the right level where it needs to be, set up for the rest of the exhaust. So effectively now what I need to do is weld this all together, including the wastegate merge, and then this is all locked and loaded. Do you remember when I said this in the last episode? This should be the last time I'm taking this thing out. That was wishful thinking. If you didn't watch that episode, I'll pop the link in the corner up there. All right, quick update. I'm about halfway through finishing welding this dump pipe, and it's looking pretty good. Not sure if I called it out in a previous episode, but you can probably see up there the O2 sensor bung is installed and fully welded out as well. So what's left is effectively the bottom leg and those last pie pieces out of the oval. I have struggled a little bit in some of those areas due to some of the gaps, but I'm getting through it. So yeah, some of the welds over there won't be as pretty as they should be, but at the end of the day, it's functional and shouldn't leak. That's the main thing. All right, I'll bring you guys back once this is fully welded out. All right, and I've finished welding the turbo dump pipe. All that's left to do is really install the V-band, but I'll do that once the engine bay's painted, underneath painted, and I'm actually building the rest of the exhaust. I think the point of today is to get this all welded out and move back to the wastegate dump pipe, which, as you know, is not in a good state at the moment. So anyway, I'll get this back on the car, and yeah, this should be the last time I'm bolting this thing on for now. And here we have it, installed in the car and looking nice. A couple of welds were a bit of a pain, and you might recall I called out there was a few gaps. There was one big one here and another one there, basically where we've gone from round to oval and met the oval pipe. So I've had to take up the gap with some larger filler rod. But apart from that, I'm super happy with how it looks. So now we need to get back to the wastegate dump pipe and build out the middle section, which connects up to this V-band here. All right, we've got the first section of the wastegate dump pipe off the car. And as I was testing the new slip coupling on this piece, I did notice it's actually a bit tight to go on. Not as tight as the other piece. But one thing that slipped my mind is I actually reefed on this with a rubber mallet to try to compensate for the out of round slip coupling. And this is now ovaled. So what I'm probably going to do is just cut a section off here, probably from around there, and then re-weld a new end section onto it. I could possibly run with this as it is, but yeah, it's pretty tight, and I don't want any problems taking this thing on and off the car, so I'm just going to have to cut my losses and call a spade and cut it off. Bit of a pain, but it is what it is. and I'd rather fix it now than have problems later on. So I've cut that oval piece off this first section of the wastegate dump pipe, and I've actually got a new piece ready to go. And with the benefit of hindsight, you know, you can always do something a bit different. Well, I've got a chance to remake this, and as old mate Billy Block says, you know, that was iteration number 1. It's time for iteration number 2. I actually got a chance to improve my design. So basically, the first piece that I did cut off, it was more of a straight section, and what it did was made the wastegate dump pipe sort of come close to the engine block. So I've actually cut an angle into this new piece here, and what I'm hoping that will do is give me a bit more clearance from the wastegate dump pipe to the engine block. So yeah, we'll see how I go, but again, this is ready to go. I'm going to tack it together and then start building the new section of the wastegate dump pipe. All right, let's get this thing welded. The ultimate test. Beautiful. All right, it's time to get onto the back section of the wastegate dump pipe that connects the front section, of course, to the turbo dump. And before I do, I need to replicate this Hang on. You guys saw me cut this up already, didn't ya? Did you really think I'd cut this up without taking any reference points? That's the power of video and editing. But jokes aside, I probably will reuse this section here, and this is the part we're going to make. So effectively what's happened is this part has ovaled, and I wasn't able to basically get it on without really forcing it on. Given that it's been welded onto a mandrel bend section, I think that's sort of what's helped it oval. But yeah, a few options here. I can lob that off, which I'm likely going to do, and then remake this section here. Or maybe try lob it off here and, you know, remake this last section. But I think, look, given that we had some problems with the flanges aligning as well, I think it's probably safer to me cutting exactly where you saw me cutting it on camera the first time, and just remaking that back section. All right, let's get to work. So I've got a few pieces of pie that were laying around, and I've just used those. And I'm just doing a couple of tacks and trying to mock something up and see if I can come close to this OG piece here. So it will be a little bit different, but same sort of principle. I've just done a quick test fit of this piece on the car, and it still fits nicely, and it looks like this is the perfect angle I need to get back to the turbo dump pipe. So I'm going to cut about a 4-inch long piece of pipe and continue the path down. safeties. All right, I'm cutting this piece apart proper now. No more funny business. All right, so what I'm going to do now is cut the tacks off this bellow and free up this last section. So all I have left is this bellow welded to this pie piece here, and then that'll give me the ability to make this last section up on the car. So I've got quite a bit of the wastegate dump pipe mocked up now, and yeah, this is probably going to be the most challenging part, but yeah, I'm pretty confident I can nail this and get it done once and for all. And just to let you know, the pipe actually slides on nice now, and there's no friction. So yeah, super happy I actually did this. It's just one of those things, right? I could have run with that old pipe, but there was just too many things working against me. One, getting it on the car was super tight. Taking it off without even going through its first heat cycle was ridiculously tight. So I can't imagine how it would have been after, you know, say a few thousand Ks. Not only that is, you know, the flange was slightly misaligned, so possibly would have been a leak there, but you know, the V-band was pulling this together and a lot of the flex was coming from the bellow, but you don't want to, you know, install something like this under tension. You want this to have the movement. So anyway, I'm going to use my Dremel and just cut these tacks off and yeah, go from there. All right, so I pretty much fabricated and tacked together 80% of the wastegate dump pipe, or the second section of it anyway. All that's left is really a few inches, and of course the V-band, which I've had to salvage as well. So what I'm going to do is make sure this still fits, which I'm pretty confident it will, and then start making some pie cuts for this last section here. Once I'm fairly happy with how that looks, I'll go ahead and weld out these few welds here. It may move around a little bit, but hopefully not too much to impact the final result. And then once that's all locked in, I can then go ahead and lock in this last piece. Might even tack these last pieces together on the car. Once it's all bolted together, there may be some gaps here and there that I need to deal with, but I'd rather deal with gaps on some pie cuts than a gap on the actual flange itself. All right, I'll go ahead and test fit this up and bring you back for an update soon. All right, I'm under the car and I've got a fairly close mock-up with the last section. There's effectively 3 pieces of pie left after the bellow onto the V-band. So I'm going to go ahead and weld out the mock-up now up to the end of the bellow, and then I've got 3 pieces left to run into the V-band. I think before I start purging this together, I might actually give it some solid tacks, because there's only like 2 or 3 on each of the weld seams. So yeah, I'll go ahead and tack it up good and proper now, and then come back and finish welding it. All right, I've got this thing fully welded out and ready to go back on the car. It's super hot to touch, so I'm gonna let it cool down and then pop it back on the car, and then of course work on these last 3 sections here. So I've got 3 pie pieces to go, and of course the V-band flange. So pretty happy with how it looks, and it should do the job. Alright, so I've got the last pieces of the wastegate dump pipe tacked in, and I've just popped the piece back in the car, and as you can see, it fits perfectly. Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer on that. I still need to weld out those final 3 pieces of pie, and of course that V-band flange, but I'll do my best to make sure that it doesn't move around too much. I'll put on a few solid tacks around each pie, and weld it very slow without trying to put in too much heat into the part. Alright, let's get to welding this and wrap this bit up once and for all. Alright, now that actually fits. No tension, everything lines up properly, and we've got heaps more clearance through there now. That's so much better. So the turbo dump and wastegate dump are finally finished. We've cut it apart, rebuilt sections of it, switched to oval pipe for clearance, fixed the alignment issues, and welded the whole system out properly. 4 episodes later, it's finally done. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give the like button a massive rev for me. And if you missed how this whole exhaust came together, go back and check out episode 1. Otherwise, check out the whole build thread. Alright, see you on the next one, legend.